Welcome to my makeshift little podcast set question mark. I don't really know. But I've been, you know, having a lot of thoughts recently, and instead of just like writing them down to myself or just thinking about them when I'm in the shower, I just wanted to come out here and just talk to the void. The void being you, of course. So, hello void. If you're new here, I'm Avery or Avrioli, former Twitch streamer here turned fitness, lifestyle, yapper. I don't really know. I'm just here. I kind of wanted to talk about today just body image, because that's something that I've been struggling with lately. Believe it or not, considering how much I've been posting, my own body on the internet, in the fitness sense, of course. And this isn't like scripted by any means, but I haven't been taking my ADHD meds in a couple days because my heart rate has been through the roof. So I wrote everything down that I kind of wanted to touch on, and if we get to it, we get to it. If not, we don't. In first grade, I was dress coded for the first time. It was an adorable little romper, fake faux little denim shorts connected to a little like flowy blouse. It was cute. I loved it. It was white, the shirt, and it had like this nice little chunky belt on it, and I loved it so much. It was my favorite outfit. My cat's eating a piece of chalk. Stop. Stupid cat. If you haven't seen me before, I'm tall. Tall enough. I'm 5'8", and I've always been taller than everybody I know. Until, middle school ish. First time I was dress coded was in first grade when I was wearing that outfit. And what my teacher said, or what I remember my mom telling me later down the line, obviously I didn't know in the moment. It isn't much of a problem now, but her legs are very long, and that outfit could pose an issue in the future. So I wasn't allowed to wear that to school anymore. And that was the first time I was aware of my body in a negative way. I was chronically anxious too as a kid, and that I don't really plan on necessarily addressing that per se, but I just figured that's important for like background context. You can kind of see decision making and whatnot. But when I was in second grade, I found out I would be moving. And I lived in, Georgia, Atlanta area. So I was like, this will be fun. It'll be a fun new adventure. But obviously, that's gonna worry any kid ever. I knew I'd be moving because my dad was interviewing for jobs, but I did not know where I'd be moving to. So every week I would come into school and I would have a new location said, you know, Texas, Tennessee, California, Washington State. Until one day it was going to be South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina to be specific. And I was excited because we would be living on a beach or near a beach at least. Obviously, I'd miss my friends, but I had an iPad. I was going to be able to keep talking to them. So I was excited for the new adventure. So I moved the summer before I started third grade. I was young, and it's kind of a blur because I was like 8 years old. But I remember peanut butter being my go to snack. I could pound a jar of peanut butter in a day if I was allowed. Loved it. Still love peanut butter to this day. And I just want to set the precedence with that because if you know where I'm going with this, you've probably been there too. So the first comment I remember ever hearing about my weight was when I was doing musical theater. I loved doing theater when I grew up, or like was growing up, and I still like low key do to this day. So I immediately got involved with theater when I moved. And I was the only person probably below 16 in this little small community theater production of Cinderella. And I loved it so much. And at the end of the show, curtain call, and we would walk down like the center area and, give high fives. And it was just fun and like community theater. And part of that, like, one of the guys there, he like put me up on his shoulder and I could like wave to everyone because I was 8 years old. By the time the show finally opened, it started in August. We performed in probably October. And at the very end, the guy who put me on his shoulder, he was like an older man too. He was sweet. His comment to me at the end was, wow, you've definitely gained a lot of weight since the start. Maybe you should lay off the donuts. So I did. By third grade, I was already the tallest in my classes. And I was at a new school, like completely new building, so everybody was also sort of new. But I definitely stood out. I remember being mocked for having an accent. I don't even know. I didn't think I did. I still don't think I did. Maybe it was a little more southern. So I changed the way I spoke. And if I did ever have a southern accent, I certainly don't now. My mom also reminded me, like a couple years ago at this point, but I used to love wearing the color pink. It was my favorite, pink sparkles, pink everything. And recently I've come back more into that. And then one day somebody in my third grade class made fun of me for it. And then I stopped completely. So moving was a challenge for me. By fourth grade, I was already the biggest in the grade, that's for sure. Definitely by height, if not also weight at that point. And I knew stood out. I was a little different, but I didn't really think much of it. I was pretty quiet, had my small little circle. Like, I got along with people, but I didn't really have close connections, if that makes sense. But I knew I stood out. I was different than the girls around me. And no one wants to feel like an outcast in fourth grade, but it's just kind of how it was. And especially since, like, my closest friends were teeny tiny, like, still to this day, like 5'2". It was just interesting. But one morning, I remember getting ready for school, and I put on my favorite bright blue tank top. It was an athletic top, and yeah, maybe it was a little tighter than it once had been, but I still loved it. So I went out to go eat breakfast before school, and my mom was like, "Hey, like maybe wear something else today." I just didn't understand, but I was like, "Okay, I guess." And then later that day, we went to go get my first pack of training bras. So now I not only was aware of my body, but I felt ashamed and even more different than everyone around me. I felt like I needed to hide in a way, I guess. So growing up on the island, I went to the beach a lot and it was great. It was a lot of fun. And I knew I didn't look like any of my friends when we would all wear our bikinis. And I just felt so different. So I would cover my stomach whenever I could. And one of my friends actually called me out for this once, and it's always stuck with me because I'm literally doing it right now. Um, wow, okay. But she said if you were cold, you'd be covering your shoulders like the rest of us, but you're covering your stomach. And so I learned to start hiding my insecurities better because I didn't want to be different by any means. I just wanted to fit in and I wanted to be wanted and liked. And I wanted friends that, you know, I could share clothes with. And after that, I started wearing one piece swimsuits. Yeah. In fifth grade, I joined the cheer team, full of, the stereotypical popular girls. And I just wanted to be like them. I wanted to fit in. And my height was an advantage too, because that meant we could do more advanced stunts because I was already 5'2" in fifth grade, which I know is short in general, but think about how tall you were in fifth grade, 5'2". I was up there. I could reach the middle shelf or something. But at the same time, with this cheer team, yeah, my height was great, but I couldn't share a uniform with anybody. So it was just one of those new things where it was like, yeah, another little line between me and the person next to me. At least in my mind. I'm sure many of you guys experience this, but in fifth grade, that's when, people start dating, as they'd like to call it. And I wasn't interested in this. I was never interested in dating, even in like middle school, high school. It was just not, I thought it was dumb. But I still wanted to be wanted. And all my friends, they started dating, my cheer friends started dating the basketball boys. And I just kind of sat there thinking, maybe one of them will like me, and then they never did. Why am I gonna cry? No, it's fine. We're fine. I'm locked. I'm locked in. The first time I remember feeling publicly humiliated was also spring of my fifth grade year. I don't know why elementary schools did this, and I hope that they don't still do this. But did you guys ever have like one day where you just go in thinking you play like, you know, dodgeball or something, and then they're like, actually line up and we're gonna take your heights and weights for some reason. I had to do that. And I weighed in. I was 5'2", 126, which I now realize, looking back, is healthy. But when all my friends were, 4'8" and below, less than 80 pounds, I felt huge. I was so ashamed. I hated it. I hated that day, and I still think about it with so much disdain. If you can't tell, I was an outcast and I felt like it. At this point, I think there was also like only one person in the entire grade like taller than me, and it was one of the guys. So I didn't fit in at all. 6th grade, that's a whole different story we're not going to get into right now. It's like the same kind of feel as 5th grade, but just worse. In every facet of the meaning, worse. But my fitness journey, I think, starts when I was in 7th grade. The anxiety of everything was too much. I just couldn't do it. I hated school so bad. I became homeschooled or online schooled, and part of the compromise was like I had to go to workout classes with my mom, so I wouldn't just become sedentary. And I was like, okay, fine, I can do that. And I loved it. Burn Boot Camp, shout out. Love that. If I could afford it, I would honestly probably do it again. And it was what I needed. It helped me create like a base for like what is fitness. And I was working out with all these, 40-plus-year-old moms, and it was great. I was like 12, 13, whatever. And I was consistent with that for at least a year, probably a little more. And then COVID happened my 8th grade year. So obviously you can't go out or anything. So I would just kind of work out in my basement. I actually just remembered this. I was into boxing for a bit, forgot about that until just now. But yeah, no, it was a good time. But in that time, whether it was while I was working out or not, I discovered calorie counting and everyone's best friend, MyFitnessPal. I still actually use MyFitnessPal, and but I use it in a healthy sense now. And I kind of love it. It's great. Would recommend if you know what you're doing. Keyword if you know what you're doing. Being the bigger girl, I wanted to lose weight, and I knew calories in versus calories out. Basic science. So I was like, okay, let me just fucking not eat because that was smart. So I was like 5'2", probably taller. No, no, no. I was like 5'6" at this point. And I was like, you know what's a good number? 1,200 calories. Girl, what? Girl, huh? What are you talking about? 1,200 calories. But no, that's what I thought was a good idea. So I did that. And obviously that doesn't work because what? And also I wasn't tracking anything accurately. I was just like, bag of Cheetos, chicken nuggets. How many chicken nuggets can I have before I hit this number? It wasn't. But again, I was like 13 or so, and I just had a very poor relationship both with my body and with food, and I didn't really have a good outlet for it. So this actually created cycles of restriction and then binging and then just feeling so much shame and guilt until it repeat and again and again and again. And eventually I kind of grew out of that, but I don't know cuz by the time I was in ninth grade, I wanted to be treated for ADHD, right? But then when I went in for my psych eval, I was diagnosed with chronic depression, severe anxiety, and mania. So I don't remember much of my ninth grade, and I wish I did because I feel like there's probably a lot of buried stuff there, but whatever. I was prescribed Zoloft, and it kind of turned me into a robot. So, we make do with what we have. So, the summer following my freshman year of high school, I moved again to a very small town in Georgia. I was still like literally manic. I was manic. So, within 1 week, not even unpacked of being there, I posted a TikTok, for sure some of you have seen it, claiming to be the next big streamer, Minecraft streamer specifically, because that was what I was obsessed with. That was my hyperfixation at the time. Still not treated for the ADHD, by the way. But that TikTok went viral, and at 15 years old, that was the best thing ever. I was like, oh my gosh, so many people like me, and I'm so excited. This is great. I was now being perceived by thousands of people streaming. My first stream, I like peaked over 1,000 viewers. I had a consistent 300, which at that time, crazy numbers. Also, 15, did not know what I was doing, did not even have Discord. This is honestly a whole different story. Let me know if you want to hear about that. But because of this, I became obsessed. I was in this new town, already feeling isolated, and then I isolated myself further because I never left my room. I spent every second of every day that I was even awake working or playing games or like editing videos, posting, scrolling, like all online, doing nothing else. I didn't really talk to my family much even at this time. They just kind of let me be because they knew I was going through a lot. Didn't really know how to be supportive, and I don't really blame them for that. But I also made no effort to make friends in this new place. So after a couple months, I still didn't know anybody. I was just on my own, just playing games in my room, and it was fun, but I kind of wish I got out there more. And still at this time, I hated the way I looked. I did, quite frankly. And I was a faceless streamer, meaning I wouldn't really stream with a face cam, but like in my TikToks or if I did have a face cam, I had on a mask and you couldn't see my face at all. But I quickly realized that my statistics and views and likes and comments were higher if my body was in the frame. So this created a weird relationship. I was probably about 16 at this point too. This created a very weird relationship where it's like I don't want to be seen, but people like seeing me. I didn't want to be sexualized in any sort of way, but if, I have long legs, if they were out, that would drive comments. Or if I, wore my belt one notch smaller and made my waist shrink a little bit, people would like those videos more. And I don't know if it was coincidence or quality of content, but sex sells. And that's always been a thing. That's not a new concept by any means. Eventually, I don't remember exactly when, but I was able to start getting treatment for my ADHD. They started me on Focalin, which is a stimulant ADHD drug, and some people still take it. My mom takes it, and it works great. But for me, it was like the death of me. It was bad. Yes, I was more productive during the day, and it would get me out of bed in the morning, but it completely got rid of my appetite, and I stopped eating. And that wasn't something that I was really like aware of would happen. It just kind of happened one day, and I was like, okay, cool. So I dropped weight rapidly. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm starting to like how I look. But then it would get to 10:30 every single day and PM. And I realized I hadn't eaten. And I did not even have the strength to stand up, walk down my stairs, and heat something up. It was a scary time. And it made me severely depressed, and I almost made some decisions that I would not have been able to undo. So I cold stopped. I was like, I need something else. So we tried some non stimulant drugs, and I started eating again, and it was great. Then the non stimulant didn't work. So I started taking Adderall, and it's worked pretty great thus far. Obviously, there are some like side effects that we don't need to get into right now. But what I didn't realize is like even though I was still get hungry and I would eat a normal amount, it got rid of that food noise that I was hearing. By the time I was 18, I had graduated high school and moved out with one of my childhood best friends. Where I lived, Adderall was constantly out of stock. City things. So I eventually just stopped taking it. I was like, whatever, like I can get by. And more so, I just didn't want to call around or drive to different pharmacies with my little prescription and get rejected. So that's on me, but whatever. But going back to it not realizing that Adderall was an appetite suppressant, I started getting snackier and I was like, oh, this is weird. Like, I don't really know what's happening. So I just snacked more and more and I didn't really pay attention. Then I don't really want to get into this too much in this video. I don't know if I'm ready for that per se. Maybe one day. I started drinking heavily to chase dopamine that I was no longer getting from my medication. So, from the time that I moved out on my own in October 2023 till about April 2025, I gained maybe 15 pounds, give or take, and I hated the way I looked. I did. I couldn't even look in the mirror. I did nothing to change it. I was like, well, I guess this is just how it is. I can, wear bigger shirts or suck in my stomach, yada, 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 that kind of thing. But eventually, after one really bad weekend, I was like, something has to give, like, something needs to change. So I re downloaded good old MyFitnessPal, started just keeping track of my food, and I wasn't like restricting anymore. It was like, I'm gonna eat what I eat. Maybe I cook more at home or eat out less, or I just, try to stay about my maintenance calories, maybe a little less. But the drinking did not stop. So fast forward to that summer. I moved back home for a couple of months to live with my parents, and I, just wasn't drinking. I started taking my medicine again. I was eating better and just moving a lot more, and I lost a lot of that weight back. And it got to the point where when I moved to college, I realized, oh wow, I am looking great. I felt beautiful, but if I lose any more weight, I'm going to be underweight, and that's not what I wanted. So I ended up joining rugby, club sports, because I just wanted something new, something different, and it gave me a reason to get into fitness. Because obviously, you can't be tiny, like lacking muscle playing rugby and not gonna get a concussion or break a bone or something. But also, something beautiful about the sport is no matter your size or shape or honestly anything, like people still want you to play. And I think that honestly saved me in a way, moving to college just on my own, figuring it out, because it gave me a reason to get stronger and kind of reshape my point of view where it's like, oh, wow, I can be, beautiful and feminine and be muscular. So I lifted not seriously until like March, April, May of this past year. I was going through a lot emotionally. I coped in very bad ways. But then May, I started 75 hard, and that gave me the kick in the ass that I needed to get myself together again. And yeah, I failed because I took it a little too far. I wouldn't go back and change it because I needed that. It helped me break a lot of bad habits that I had formed again and just got me seriously lifting. And I've seen like crazy, crazy muscle growth recently. But because of that, that brings us back to body image. I have gained 9 pounds this year and I love it. I really do. I feel strong. I've seen muscle growth and it's great. But on the same note, I have not gone through any kind of body recomp phase at all. So I'm fluffy in a way. I've grown. And yes, you can see. Oh, my cat. Hello, buddy. So I've been chilling at about 24% body fat this whole time, at least since 75 hard. I think it was definitely a bit more before. I've remained about the same body fat. I've just gained more muscle, so I've gotten wider. So yeah, my legs and arms have gotten huge to me, at least in a good way. But so is my waist and my stomach, and it's just interesting. It's just hard sometimes not to feel like bad about that in a way because my entire life it's like, oh, like if you're smaller, you'll be liked or wanted, or people think you're attractive. If they think that, they want to get to know you more. So now it kind of feels like I'm going against that. And I know it's for the better, but then I get today's like, today or the past couple days where it's just been hard, Like I baked some brownies because it was my last day of work and I brought them in and it was great. And then I had like four left over. And then when I got home, I just mindlessly ate all of them without thinking. And then I hated myself for it. And I didn't like that. So I'm kind of sharing this not to be like, oh, woe is me, but this is just, it's real. It's realistic. And my cat's on his way back to attack me. Please don't, sir. Ow, don't do that. You have something to say. But it's hard to feel beautiful sometimes when I'm intentionally trying to gain weight. And I still want to gain about 5 or so more pounds before I go on any sort of cut, probably in like March or so of next year. But it is just, it's hard sometimes. I don't know. I guess all this to say, I just kind of hope one of y'all can relate. And if you can, like, leave a comment or just like send me a DM on Instagram, TikTok, whatever. Because I'd love to continue this conversation. And I didn't really touch a lot on like my friends and family impact on my life or, dating and having a boyfriend who makes me feel beautiful all the time, regardless of, if my hair's done, my makeup's done, what, literally anything. Shout out him, he's great. Or like anything about middle school, really, because that is a whole different video. But yeah, I guess if you can relate, just let me know. And if you want me to touch on any more topics like this was a very brief story of my life, I guess. So if there's more parts you want to talk about, let me know. I love a yap. I love a yap session. But yeah, I guess that's all from me. You could have been anywhere in the world and you chose to be here. And for that, I thank you. So I will see you in the next one. Okay, bye.